And we're live
We
on
made it another week.
Facebook, LinkedIn, all of your wherever you guys normally watch this stuff. That's probably where we are. So,
Glad that you're here to hang out with us. Thank you. Welcome. We
uh,
were just talking as we started what our beverages of choice were,
yep.
and mine was particularly perverse, I think. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera. So this is a HEB Diet Original Cola, caffeine free.
No
So
caffeine,
no caffeine, no sugar,
no sugar,
and it's not even real Coke. So it's just fake,
no
fake,
brand name
fake. Yeah. It's basically sparkling water with a bunch of extra chemicals.
to go along with our fake news that we're going to be doing
Fake
here. Right?
news, yes.
Yeah.
What are you drinking over there?
Dude, I got the real thing here, man. Lone Star,
Ah,
Lone Star, real beer.
real beer.
Yep.
140 years.
140 years. Drink
Is that a
anything else
real
is treason, supposedly.
is that a real Texas beer? Cuz I know
Yeah.
Ziegenbach is not. Ziegenbach is I don't know where it's brewed, but it's owned by Anheuser-Busch, I think.
Okay.
Shiner is real, is authentic Texas.
Right.
Is Lone Star authentic Texas? Is it?
From what I understand, man, like Lone Star is. We should actually Google this. We don't want to give our audience fake information.
Yeah,
Where
we're not the fake news.
are here?
It's the other ones. It's the
Yeah, this is your real news station.
real.
The first large mechanized brewery in Texas.
Hey, there you go.
Oh, but Adolphus Busch of Anheuser Busch founded it along with a group of San Antonio businessmen, 1884.
Oh, that's fine. No, I mean that. I don't care who owns it, but you
Okay.
know how it's like
New York City.
New York. Yeah, somebody get a rope. Well, I mean, beer culture right now is so it's so funny. Did I tell you about this when I was in Ireland?
No, tell me.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
that's right. You and Marissa went to Ireland.
we were Northern Ireland, right? So the
Yep.
Ireland, the island, but Northern Ireland, the country there at the top. We're in the very northernmost coast
Okay.
of Northern Ireland. And as we traveled around, you stop in pubs. Everything is done in pubs, right? That's just food is in pubs. Everything is pubs. And we noticed that there are no microbreweries
In Ireland.
in Ireland, or if there are, they're just not advertised. They're not available. So it's the exact same beer in every pub.
And
It's
what is it? It's Harp, Guinness.
so Guinness number one, and then Harp, which is owned by Guinness, and then Smithick, which is owned by Guinness, and then there's a
Smithix.
Citra IPA, also owned by Guinness. Like everything is owned by Guinness, right? So those four are everywhere because it's like this is Guinness country.
Corporate overlords, man.
Yeah, and then you've got a couple. You'll have an Italian beer that's there. I can't remember the name of it. Starts with an M. Moretti.
Moretti. Yeah.
Moretti's
Moroni.
there, and then tons of places will have Carlsberg. So if you want a lager and you don't want Harp, it'll be Carlsberg.
Love
And
Carlsberg.
and then occasionally you'll have a place that'll have an American beer, and American beers are almost always
Budweiser.
Coors,
Oh, Coors.
Coors, or Corona.
That's Mexican.
No, well, no, but I mean from North America,
Western Hemisphere. Yeah.
Western Hemisphere, North America. Yeah, no, I mean if you're in you're in Northern Ireland, Corona is American. It's too far away.
Yeah.
So, but the funny thing about all these beers is they have very, very low alcohol content. So I think Guinness is something like 3.5%. There's roughly the same amount of calories. It's slightly more in a Guinness than in a Bud Light.
Really?
Yeah. So like 12 ounces of Bud Light is like 110, something like that, and 12 ounces of Guinness is 125.
I feel like this is heretical here, but you're saying this is in Ireland. This is the way they do it.
This is how it's done. So
I feel very uncomfortable right now. we're gonna get canceled just for this conversation.
no. So I was having this conversation. We're at a pub. We're having some food, having some fish and chips, and I asked them about what's the deal with with these super low alcohol beers because Texas, the craft brew scene in Texas is higher and higher ABVs.
Hmm.
Like it's not unusual to find like an imperial IPA with 10% alcohol.
I was gonna say
It's like,
usually like 5 to 8 is kind of where you want to be, right? Yep.
yeah. So they were just like, oh man, it's like I heard in America you guys have crazy beer. Like I saw one that was like 7%. We're like,
But you're like, this is why you can sit in the pub and drink all day too, though.
right,
Right.
right, and like
Because
as many pubs as we went into and out of, as tourists, we never saw people that were drunk. Like that was just not a thing, as far as we could tell. I mean, maybe later at night, but a lot of these places, they're like the town that we were in. Pretty much everything shut down at 9 p.m. You had a couple places that stayed open till 10, and that's it.
you crazy Irish.
Yeah, there's a lot of other kind of funny things about it. Like all the pubs would have signs out if they served food, and it would say "Good food served here." Good food. It'd be like good food. Good food.
Unlike the food at other places.
Well,
Hey, do you want to go to the pub and get some good food?
good food. Yeah. Well, so I finally asked one of the proprietors because I was just like, "I'm sorry, like I'm not from around here.
Right.
What does good food signify? Like, does it mean like a specific, like we serve hot meals instead of just sandwiches or something? Like, what is good food?" And it was like, it's marketing, but marketing from like 150 years ago that just stuck around.
Right.
So that's
It's like
it.
those signs from the 50s that you see that say air conditioning, cold air conditioning.
Yeah,
Yep.
you're like, what other kind
Right.
of air conditioning? Would it
Right.
be? Yeah, It's like, yeah, that's what is good food. Good food.
Good
It's
food.
just, yeah, we serve good stuff. You'll like it. It's yummy. Come get a meal. So,
Gosh,
anyway.
man, I remember being in Hong Kong with Dan Chen, and he goes, hey, what kind of food do you want to get? I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm feeling like some Chinese food. And he's like, no. He goes, here they just call that, food.
It's food. Yeah,
It's food. Yeah.
it's food. You want noodles? You want rice? You think
Chinese
it's
food.
vegetarian?
Y'all have Chinese food here?
How spicy do you want
Yes.
it? Yeah, that's the thing you should worry about, not whether it's Chinese.
Chinese food. Good food. I'm gonna get some good food. I was in a bar one time. I was selling books in West Virginia. It was just like, in fact, the year that you and I lived together, Clay County, Clay, West Virginia, which is maybe a town of like, I don't know, 600 people. And there was this old bar right downtown in Clay County. I don't think there was even a traffic light. I mean, it was like a stop sign maybe.
Yeah.
And you go in this old bar, and they got, this menu is basically posted above the bar, and it was like Budweiser, Bud Light, whatever, the sodas. And it was kind of one of those menus that had the little puffy lines with the plastic letters that kind of stick into the wedge into the lines there.
Yeah.
And then it had hamburger, cheeseburger, spaghetti, and something else. And then there was underneath it was this handwritten note, and it said, "This isn't Burger King. You either get it our way or you don't get some bitch at all."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's like this. There's this bar downtown Dallas back in the late '90s, and during the day they were a lunch spot. So back in the '90s, downtown Dallas was kind of a wasteland. So I mean, you had
And
these,
you worked there. You had a
did.
tech job, right? In Deep Ellum.
Yeah, and Deep Ellum and the Fair Park area was basically tattoo shops, super grungy alternative bars. Like it was just a mess. It's not like that anymore. Now downtown Dallas and Deep Ellum is like a tourist spot. It's like
Right.
they've got the little paper
Super ritzy.
parking lots and carefully curated graffiti murals.
Scan the
and
QR
stuff.
code to pay for parking. Yeah.
It's disgusting. Like back
You're
in
a
the
purist,
day.
man. You're a purist.
Yeah.
You're like the guys that want the deuce back in New York.
Well, yeah, or the ones that walk around Rainy Street.
Where are all
Austin.
the hookers?
Yeah. This is wrong. It's not the
Clean
city
up.
I
This is
remember.
Disneyland? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so Deep Ellum back then had this really dirty dive bar that started opening up from, I think it was like 12 to 2 p.m. and to serve cheeseburgers, just to kind of make a little extra money since they had the thing there. And so the staff, you go in and you'd be like, "I'd like cheeseburger," and they wouldn't ask you a thing. Like, how do you want it? You want onions on it?
Here's your burger. Yeah.
No, it's just like you pay them $6. in cash only, and you get whatever it is that they serve you. And it was always great. Like it was fantastic. I never complained
Yeah.
about it, but it was just like there are no options.
Right.
What's
I
wrong
think
with
some
you?
of the best places in the world are like that. Like I mean, I was in Manhattan one time years ago, and this friend of mine, she took me to McSorley's, which is supposedly the oldest continuously operating bar in Manhattan, at least at the time. I don't know if you're watching this and you can correct me if I'm wrong there, but they have two kinds of beer, light and dark. That's it. They're on tap.
Okay.
And they have these small 10-ounce frosted mugs, basically. And the girls will, like Oktoberfest style, like just grab a mitt full, right? And they deliver them. So hey, we want, we got a group of people here. We want, 3 dark and 2 light, or whatever the case may be. And then they had a couple of appetizers, but the one that they were famous for was a plate that had a couple of slices of Wonder Bread. So untoasted Wonder Bread.
Just white.
White
Wonder
bread.
Okay.
The kind that you bet each other, like, oh, I bet you can't eat that inside of 60 seconds, whatever the old bet is, right? So, yeah. So you had a couple slices of Wonder Bread. You had a couple of pieces of like cheddar cheese that were like cut with like a knife, maybe like a kind of a bulky cheddar cheese thing. And then you had some onions, like some just raw onions, white onions. Yeah, onions, cheese, white Wonder Bread.
Wait, hold on one second. The cheese, is this like a slice of like the cheese slices, or do you mean like a
no,
wheel of cheddar,
like a wheel of cheddar, and you would like chop off like
they would slice
a piece. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, not in the plastic wrappers.
I'm just trying
that would have been yeah.
Like if it was like Kraft Easy Melt, and like, oh, we're
right.
It's that kind of establishment.
Well, and they had, this bar is so old that when they built it, they only have one restroom because women weren't allowed in the bar, and so it was just a restroom. And of course now, since they started letting women drink alcohol in public, it's so shocking. But what's even more shocking
is next thing you know, they're going to
they want to drink in public. And but you would literally, there's just like that's the restroom, and so you just kind of queue up, use the restroom, so at least they didn't have the trans bathroom dilemma of what do we do. Yeah, that's still the restroom. It's still the one you use. And dude, in the ceiling, it's just like cobwebs everywhere. And I think they're not fake. I mean, you could tell it's dirt, and it's just kind of like we're just gonna leave it there because ambiance,
part of the atmosphere. So how was this appetizer?
Terrible. But the experience is great. Of course, you order it because I mean, it's like what is this? Cheese and onions. Okay, yes, please bring me a plate. And then you're like, oh, it's really just cheese and onions. Give me some more of that dark beer, please. So it's just kind of a.
Well, I was thinking like maybe that's the thing is like maybe the onions and everything really go with the dark beer, and it's like, oh yeah, you just you get into a feedback loop. The more onions, right. The more beer, the more beer, the more onions.
I think you just kind of have to. Some of this stuff is like self hypnotism, right? It's like, oh, let me buy into this narrative you're creating for me here and transport myself back into time. And
though, I'll tell you, I think there is something really special about. I don't know what to call this, but like submitting to the experience of the meal.
Oh, sure.
So like if I think about like the best sushi experience that I've ever had, it was at one of those. I don't know how to pronounce it. Omakase, is that how you pronounce it? But basically, you sit down, you pay the fee, and then they just start bringing stuff out, and it'll be like one piece. This one is this one. And of course, they check to see if you're allergic to anything. They don't want to.
Right. They don't want you die.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's like, no, I'm not allergic. Just bring stuff, and they'll bring things that you would never order, you would never even think about, and they're in a sequence that makes sense. And so, you just buckle in,
go with the flow. Yeah.
You eat what's there, and you'll probably love the experience as a whole. There's something to be said for that, because I think otherwise, I mean, this has happened to me before where I've gone to Starbucks and ordered something and they make me the wrong thing. and it's like,
And they're like, "Oh, this is delightful. What is this?"
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
they're like, oh, and the Starbucks, especially since the whole point of the store is that you get exactly what you want.
exactly what I want.
Half
Right,
calf cappuccino, one shot of sugar-free vanilla, kind of thing.
right,
It's
right.
like, but so they're like, oh, will we make it? It's like, no, 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 no. I want to drink this. I just want to know what it is so I can order it again
Order
next
it
time,
again. Right.
right? Because it's really good.
And
And
they
I would
start
have,
telling you what it is, and you have to like, hold on, let me just press record on my voice note here
yeah,
because there's no way I'm going to get all that, you know. Then I'm just going to play it for the next person. This is what I want, you know.
yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
and that's the I think there's something to be said for like, well, I'm just going to order randomly off this menu, and I'll probably like whatever it is, and I don't have to. It doesn't have to be something that I would expect. And I don't know. I feel like that's maybe like a lost art of just
Well, no, I think it's
enjoying whatever comes.
yeah, I think I agree it's a lost art, but I also think it's had a resurgence over the last like 10 years or so. Like, I mean, there's a restaurant here in Austin that we used to go to all the time. Marissa's been there. It's called Odd Duck, and they have it's a new menu every day. So like
Oh,
they literally they create this
that's a
menu.
lot of work for the
It's a
chef.
lot of work, and it'll be like there's I don't know how many items there are, but 15 items or so, 12 items, something like that. And when you go with like of most of the tables are four tops, and it's really designed for like either like a double date or like small group of friends.
Hmm.
And so we would go, and Leanne and I used to go there all the time. It'd be like four people around the table, and basically just say, because if you look at the menu and you're trying to decide, it's like just bring me one of everything, right? So you just give them menu, you say, hey, just bring us one of everything, and so they would bring out like four servings of each thing, one at
And
a
a
time,
serving is a bite or two.
a couple of bites. That's right. And it's just this little, plate. They put it in front of you. You either chopsticks, fork, whatever. And I agree with you. That those are some of the most, and two, like you're almost like I don't even want to ask what this is because I might not eat it. If I knew what it was in it. But just delicious. And then you're kind of like, man, what is that? Oh, that was monkey brains with the puree of whatever, right? And you're just like, great, great.
Awesome.
Yeah, bring me
Thanks for the
another
mad
portion.
cow disease. That's
Thanks.
all.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
100%, man.
Yeah.
So I know we last few episodes we've done, we've been a little trying to be like on time with stuff. So just for those people watching, we're sticking to a strict like 90-minute time frame here.
We're
But
trying.
we're trying
to be
to.
good citizens.
But dude, a lot to cover this week. I think with the early moves of the incoming administration, some of the temper tantrums that are being thrown, from our dear blue friends. I'm gonna start calling them Smurfs now. I think so,
Smurfs.
my little blue friends. And Tony had asked us if we would chime in on will the Hamati brothers answer for the Democrats' assassination of Peanut the squirrel and Fred the raccoon? Are you familiar with this story?
Yeah, I am. I don't know. I have some thoughts about it. Do you have thoughts about it? You want to?
Ladies first, man. No, go ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead.
Hey, just because I'm prettier than you. No.
That's right. You're
so-
smarter than me. That's why I'm like, oh, maybe I'll borrow something from you. Actually, I just totally agree. Next point.
Yeah. Next. I think it's it's infuriating.
Mhm.
And like if especially when you start to think about, well, what was the crime that was involved here? Like he had a wild animal and he should have had a permit for it or something along those lines.
Didn't have papers. That's right.
And it's like, okay, so this is a paperwork crime. It's not, no one accused, like, oh my gosh, the squirrel's been biting the neighborhood children, and it's eaten some of the local cats, and we're worried that maybe it's a squirrel of unusual size or something. Like,
Right. Squirrel of unusual size.
There's nothing. I mean, it's just it seems like a paperwork issue, and I would think that a government that felt like it was beholden to the people would try to find some way to help him do the paperwork. So it's like, hey, we're going to give you a fine for this, but look here, let's get you, a social worker here that can help get this situation under control, regularize everything. Maybe there's some extra stuff that you're going to have to do as far as how you keep it or making sure that it gets the right kind of veterinary attention. And then, but then it's like, but instead we get this raid with like something like 4 agents that they go and arrest him, impound all the animals, euthanize 2 of them. And I mean, it's just like, wow, did somebody watch a whole bunch of movies about like, drug raids, and they're like, man, just in the wrong branch of law enforcement. And if only I could do a no knock,
Right,
in
right, right.
full riot gear and have my mask on and like smack somebody around because he's being arrested. Like, wouldn't that be great? And then and then you
just
get the
outrageous.
authorization. Like, we got to go to this
It's
is
my lucky
time.
day.
Yeah. I'm going to just go oppress this person because, screw them. Right? I'm in charge.
Right.
I'm the boss. There's something about it just to me seemed so overboard in terms of government response. But I think also, did you read Neil Gorsuch's new book?
No, I just got it. The Overruled, right?
Yeah. So that book is full of cases like this, just from start to finish, stuff you read it and you're like, how does this happen? And then, especially in that book, some of them you get to the end and they're like, oh, and don't worry, the court sided with, the appeals court sided with them. And so it only took them 6 years and about $200,000 to clear the name.
Right.
And you're
Right.
like,
What?
how is that? How is that? I mean, you got punished by the system for nothing, and there's no recourse, no anything. It's like, no, we found in your favor. You won, and it's like, how is this winning?
Right.
So
I died bankrupt, but I was posthumously. Oh, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We were
it was final adjudication was in my favor. That's awesome. And some of these prosecutors that have the authority to do this stuff there's no repercussions for them because they have prosecutorial immunity and so on. So, I think that as a way of getting this conversation out there, I mean, obviously it's tragic what happened to these pets. And that should have never happened. But, you have the guys from the, like the Second Amendment groups that are, it was the meme with the first time thing. It's like, oh, the government killed my pet, and it's like, first time, 'cause like that's the meme is the ATF raids your house,
right?
All
Okay.
your dogs.
Oh, this is your first time.
Yeah, first time to have your pets killed by the cops, like, get in line. But it's like no one cares about those people because they're Second Amendment crazies, or nobody.
And
cares
also,
about that.
I think too, if this guy hadn't been on TikTok and the squirrel hadn't been famous, that would have just totally been.
It would just been a story,
just another thing,
Yeah.
Well, actually, ironically, probably would never have gotten called on him because it was probably somebody jealous of his channel, Googled where he lived and folded an anonymous tip,
It's just, I mean, I think if that gets people thinking like, wait a second, I don't think that a republic, of the people, by the people, etc., should have police forces that do this
right
at all. Like, why does animal control have a SWAT team?
Well, I think too so yeah, we're in violent agreement on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, but it also, I thought and again, dude, this has just been an election season where the Republicans have just outsmarted the Democrats at like every turn, like just very, very intelligent, like reading of the news and tying it into some issue that they've already been harping on. And I mean, this one was just so easy. It was like a layup for him, like, JD Vance and Trump, all these guys, like, oh, can you see what they did to the squirrel, and it was like, oh yeah, there's the government overreach, Yeah. And I think that was very effective messaging. It's like first they're trying to eat your pets. First you have immigrants in your town that are eating your pets, and then if that's not enough, the government comes in, takes them, and kills them. It's like it just was like insult to injury.
I mean, you could quote Judas and be like, "Why kill the squirrel? This could have been used to feed the poor."
Right, exactly. Don't we have an immigrant population? Why are we killing these squirrels? We can hand them over. Well, and it also tied in with this.
I'm sorry for if the person who owned the squirrel sees this, please understand that this is a horrible situation. So, but we have to laugh. It's part of our job.
It is part of our job. I've been laughing at I've been improperly laughing at improper things for a long time. Yeah. It also tied in with what was this issue? I'm trying to remember. I was just trying to see if I could find it, but the case that came up in California where they asked Kamala, would you vote against, would you vote for this or support? I can't remember what it was. I think maybe you might be a little bit more on top of it. And then she wouldn't even though she was against whatever they had said, she wouldn't come out and say she was against it because it would offend potentially some. If you're blanking on it, that's fine. But I just think it's a scenario of, and I've had a long talk with a couple of my Smurf friends, and just talking about like, dude, it's almost like the Democrats for a long time have been. In fact, Dad and I were talking about this last night. They were down here again, helping out with our grandma, but for a long time, they have been very effective at pointing out how different groups of people or different segments of society have been marginalized, and how do we help those groups of people? And to be honest, that's one of the big things that drew me to be more liberal years and years ago. I think in 2002, the final straw was, we talked about this before, it was a foreign policy thing back in 2002, but even up to that point, having, just seeing some of the different things that were going on with healthcare and things like that, it's just like, dude, this is not right. And there's a lot of people that are falling through the cracks, and the government can and should be doing more to stop these gaps. And so that's really what drew me to, that side of the table after growing up conservative my whole life. And I still think there's a myriad of issues that need to be seriously addressed, that the government can and should, have a voice in, the government being us, right? In that context. But you've been pointing out to me for years, that like, well, the government, yeah, in theory, the government is the voice of the people, but in reality, the government's not functioning as the voice of the people at all. In fact, it's like this. And I think what's happened here in this particular cycle is there's so many issues that are just completely obvious to most non-political, everyday Americans, if you want to call them that. Whether it's boys playing in girls sports, whether it's should illegal immigrants get access to all these services? Should they be housed in 5-star hotels? Should they be all these different things, right? Should American citizens take priority over emergency funds when an emergency happens, or is there enough? Just over and over and over again, like story after story after story after story. And then they were put in a position, Democrats, where they couldn't even denounce something that was just obvious because, we've narrowcasted ourselves into this situation where now if I take any position on this, I'm going to offend another constituency that I really need to keep in my tent. And it's just, hopefully this is a purge and a reset for him.
Yeah, I think it probably will be. I've been reading some of the postmortems from more of the left leaning stuff. I think, like we said last time, I don't find winning to be all that instructive, but losing is very instructive.
That's right. Yeah. If you look for a lesson instead of somebody to blame,
Right. Well, and some of the stuff, there was one that came out in the Atlantic that was really interesting, where the discussion was something like the rule of thumb was, when the economy, is the quote, it says, when the economy does well for most households, when programs help create security and opportunity for more people to participate in that economy, political rewards follow. And so you think, okay, well, Democrats have been, the Biden administration has been putting out a lot of these numbers showing we have the best unemployment ever, inflation is down, everything is going great, like we spend all this money on infrastructure. And so it's like, oh my gosh, it didn't work this time. We delivered all these things to the American people, and they didn't give us the political rewards. And so this is a little quote from this article. It says, Democrats may be tempted now to answer in the negative, right, that this correlation no longer holds up. But there's a strong case to be made that the 2024 election demonstrates that the feedback loop between policy choices and electoral outcomes does in fact endure. The issue is not that deliverism failed. It is that Democrats convinced themselves that they had delivered without listening to the voters telling them they had not. And I think as you read through some of these more thoughtful explanations, you start to get, I mean, we can laugh as much as we want about some of the silliness that happened in the Harris campaign. Like when you start tallying up the amount of money that they spent on celebrity endorsements. So it's like, oh,
millions of dollars.
my favorite one was the Beyonce one. So Beyonce comes out,
Right.
delivers the
10 million.
speech, and everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, she's gonna sing." No, she doesn't sing. And the Harris campaign paid $10 million.
$10 million. Yeah. Yeah. And they
this-
paid,
like,
and they
it's not-
paid Oprah $1 million. And
well, not
of
her
course,
personally, her production company.
her production company, right?
So that one I think is actually fair because the production company did this long town hall, and so they paid her production company the costs of doing the town hall.
But they made
right?
the
That's okay.
campaign. They made the campaign build the studio, so
Yeah.
that it was $100,000 for
Yeah.
a single-use studio.
Yeah,
You know,
a
and I
single-use
mean, like,
podcast studio.
it's crazy that I mean, you raise $1 billion, over $1 billion. You spend it in 100 days, and you spend so much that you actually are $20 million in debt at the end of it. And then in your case is, oh, I would be better for the economy. Like, what, you can't even, I mean, this is crazy. And then did you see the Trump tweet or Truth Social, whatever? He goes, this is terrible. I find out that the campaign, is
We should help cover it.
We should help cover it. Like,
For unity.
And I'm like, dude, think about that is one of the best trolls I think I've seen ever.
We'll pay
like,
your debt. It's
we'll
fine.
pay it. We'll pay it. We just want the country needs to move on, and we'll just stroke the check for that.
So good.
And I was listening to Laura Trump, who was the head of the RNC. Trump made her head of the RNC, and at the time, I even personally was like, dude, this is ridiculous. Like, just family members, nepotism, whatever, right? And which would have been reasonable, since, I mean, Ronna McDaniel was only in there because she was a Romney. I mean, like, these are like cherry, positions that are handed out to nincompoops that don't know what they're doing. So I just kind of dismissed it, like, oh, whatever. Dude, and I've heard her now give a couple of interviews after the fact, and
she worked very hard.
The thing is that they were concerned about, rightly so, was that and again, it's all about like what narrative do you believe, right? The narrative they believed, which I don't believe this, but the narrative that they believed was that Democrats basically cheated in multiple different ways, not cheating in some documented way, but just like, allowing this to go through, allowing that to happen, allowing this, even though it's against the rules, just different things like that, because, hey, there's a pandemic on and whatever.
Oh, you're talking about the Republicans in 2020?
During 2020, okay. They were convinced that that's when they're talking about.
I wasn't sure who the they was, but I got you.
Pardon me. Yeah. Pronouns, dude. They, them, dude. I mean, who knows who we're talking about? Okay. So that's what they were concerned about. And so they had spent, she had gone into every county basically and had done this massive outreach to attorneys. Like, hey, look, if you're an attorney and you love this country and you want to take this country back, blah, 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 all this, garbage messaging that we hear, but like, okay, here, if you're this, fill out this form. If you want to help, make sure that the election is secure, because we need attorneys who are going to make sure that every single person here, is following the rules.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need any
challenges in a timely manner.
Correct. You don't need any election experience. We'll train you on what to do. Just if you're interested, fill out this form, and then they would vet people. They had a vetting board, et cetera, to do this. They were overwhelmed with responses. So like, there's so many attorneys that came out of the woodwork to donate some of their time or to work on this project. So the interview that she was giving, where I learned about this initiative, the guy, the podcast guy, goes, well, how much money did you guys spend on this? Zero. They spent no money, because they just got people to donate their time because they were passionate about it. And I think the difference in enthusiasm, where you're like, okay, we got thousands of attorneys to donate man hours to just, and they had to file. She said, actually, there were relatively few things that they had to do. Like, there was a lot of work up front. filing challenges and no, you can't do that. And no, that's against the law, whatever. And just keeping people on the straight and narrow, that by the time that it actually came time to run the election, like, people were kind of, they knew this infrastructure was in place, and they didn't really try a lot of the things that, may have been tried in the past.
Right.
And you compare that to,
it was very strategic.
Very strategic. And when you compare that to, I'm shelling out millions of dollars to celebrities to come and say that they support my campaign. It's such a chasm of, very wide gulf. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and I think it would be tempting if you're a Democrat, like part of the party, not just someone who tends to vote Democratic, but like really identifies with the party. I think it might be tempting to just say, well, look, Harris is a bad candidate. We all knew she was a bad candidate. She was a bad candidate in 2019. She was a bad candidate. The whole reason that Biden picked her was because, as like the escape clause, no one would try to replace him because they would get her, and she's terrible, and everybody knows she's a joke. And then we had this sort of moment of irrational exuberance when she was picked, and now you're hearing rumors that this was actually part of the Dark Brandon theory, right? Which, by the way, I think is looking more and more plausible. He looks so happy. He invited Trump over, welcome back, all this other stuff.
He did look very happy.
Strange about this situation, but part of the theory is that when he was forced out, remember, and whether he knew about the fact that he was dropping out or whether his staffers did it, but if you remember, the initial dropping out statement had no plan for the next candidate. Mm-hmm. It was hours later that there was another statement that came out
endorsing. Yeah.
And the rumor, and this is only a rumor, but it would be an interesting one. The rumor is that the original plan for the party elites, so Pelosi and Obama and so on, was to do a kind of a snap primary. So do a primary that was maybe more informal. Let's get some interest out there. Let's get donors interested. Let's do all this stuff. And there would be ways for people to input into the process or contact their what do they call it? The delegate to the convention and so on. And that, probably there wouldn't be like an open floor battle, but there would be some process where someone would be chosen, and then it would culminate in the DNC.
Some Hunger Games play out. Yeah.
Yeah, but it would be something, and maybe Newsom would get involved. Maybe this, people that we could get excited about, but that Biden, as the Dark Brandon, hours later put out his own statement, which was, well, I'm endorsing Harris, basically stuck the party with her, knowing how bad she is. Anyway,
I would love to have been a fly on the wall, because my theory, even when it came out, I was like, there was no signature on the original. I was like, dude, I guarantee you somebody wrote this and put it out while he's taking a nap somewhere, and they put it on his Twitter. Yeah. And, now he's, and I think I even had said to, I don't think I put this on social media, but I've texted him, he's going to be pissed when he wakes up, and finds out he resigned. Yeah. And, but that, it was, you may have something there.
So, anyway, like I said, just a rumor, but I think it would be tempting for Democrats to look at it and just say, well, the reason we lost was Harris.
No, they're not saying that. They're saying the reason they lost was Biden. That's the overwhelming consensus that I'm hearing. Is, he stayed in too late, and
sure. So the one thing is like the mechanics of the election, the race, the timing, who was chosen, all that. I think the much more interesting blame is the state of the United States. I mean, poll after poll after poll, when you look at, and from across, not even just like the more ideological pollsters, but just everybody, when they poll, like, is the country on the right direction or the wrong direction? Something like 70% wrong direction. So it's
that's right. And there's been some chatter, and it's a valid point that my Democrat friends are making, which is, look, every country that has had inflation, which is every country on earth after COVID, basically, almost. Every country that uses money, every country that uses, every country that uses fiat currency, which is pretty much every country, has seen inflation, skyrocket. And we're actually and I've seen different charts. I mean, we're actually doing really well comparatively to the rest of the world in terms of inflation. But all these countries, when the people experience high inflation, they can't afford to buy the stuff that they got to buy. Then they throw out the people that are in charge. That's an easy one, right? And so it's like, well, we shouldn't read too much into this. It's just it was the way it was going to happen, and it's amazing that we kept it as close as we did, or whatever. I was just like, I just if that's the only lesson you're pulling, then I just I was listening to Charlie Kirk a couple days ago. They were like, well, they're seeming to draw this lesson. Do you if that's the lesson they're drawing, what do you think? And he's like, well, if that's the lesson they're drawing, I'm glad, because that means we'll just keep kicking their butts for the next few cycles. Like, okay, he's got zero sympathy, for
he's a party guy.
He is. He's not a party guy. He's well, I guess he's become one. But he's really more of he's a MAGA guy. He's not even. He's
but
screw Republicans. I'm down with this.
Sure.
I'm interested to
see.
Rephrase.
You're right.
Yeah, he's a MAGA guy. What do you think about these cabinet picks? We got a.
Oh yeah.
So we got the first female chief of staff in history. Okay. That apparently he's not getting any credit for that, but whatever. She seems sharp as hell.
Well, she's a long-time political activist within the party, so I would assume she knows where the levers to pull are and how to do it. So that'll be good. Hopefully, she'll be effective.
I think that's pretty non-controversial. Marco Rubio, though, Secretary of State. What do you think of that one?
So, I thought. So here's kind of my thinking. So, from what I can tell, Trump seems to like having a variety of ideas around him. He seems to like this kind of thing. So whether that's just from like business management style, it's like you don't want to just have one opinion coming from 10 different people or something. So
unless that opinion is, no, sir, you really won the election, then that's all I want to hear.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, that's
fine. Right. but when I heard about the Rubio, and I was like, okay, Rubio is very hawkish on defense stuff. He's very pro Israel, very pro Ukraine funding. It's like, oh, that doesn't seem very. But then
this doesn't seem very aligned with the message that you were giving out there.
Yeah, on this but then the next day, today, he appoints Tulsi Gabbard as his DNI.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's. So at first, my original thought was like, oh, I guess the swamp wins after all. But now it's kind of like, okay, this looks like more of, well, okay, I'm going to give this diplomacy aspect to this group, but I'm going to give like how to handle the intelligence services to this group, and so you have different factions that can kind of play out with him as the puppet master at the top. I think is how he's trying to play it. I don't know. I don't know.
I also think one style that I have noticed of his that I do think is actually smart is he doesn't really, except for evangelical Christians, with that exception, he doesn't really like to be beholden or visibly beholden to any one point of view.
Yeah.
He likes to be a little bit hard to read, and I think it's super easy to pull the rug out from your Secretary of State. I mean, they've been doing that for years. Oh yeah, that's what he said. Well, yeah, we're not doing that. So I don't know. I think I mean it's a prestigious spot, but when I first heard it, I was like, interesting. So the establishment fights back.
Well, and I think in his favor, I mean, Rubio is. He certainly has the experience for it. He's done a lot of foreign policy stuff within the Senate. He's a longtime senator. He's been on, committees that involved foreign policy and diplomacy and
he's just a super hawk, man. He's just I look at him like Haley and a bunch of he's part of the war machine, in my opinion. I mean, he's hadn't seen it in a foreign conflict he doesn't want to get involved in. So.
But I think like if you're going to pick someone as part of the war machine, so like if Trump is thinking to himself like I want to have some of these people around because sometimes they're going to have good ideas and I want to hear the back and forth and all that. if you were going to pick someone out of the War Machine, I mean, he's got the experience and the chops and the years to do it.
And small hands. So
and small hands, very small hands.
very small hands.
Little Marco.
Little Marco, yeah.
But I actually think that's if you're going to pick someone like that, I'm a little less excited about Elise Stefanik.
See, there's another one.
But I mean, I always saw her as more
UN though. That's also a throwaway. Go talk nice to those people, and then we'll do some.
Vote.
We'll
Look angry when you vote this way. I don't know.
What do you think of the Pete Hegseth, the secretary, the SecDef Fox News guy?
Yeah.
So he does have some military experience.
He's a Marine, right, or something?
Right.
Other than that, I don't know anything.
But I don't know. It did a tour or two, basically. Not a thick background, but people at the Pentagon apparently are like, who is this guy? So that'll be interesting.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think the important part for me would be if he was like deeply connected to the military industrial complex. So like Lloyd Austin, the SecDef right now, 4-star general. So I mean, that's awesome. Like he's got the authority and military experience, but he's also part of Raytheon. So it's like our Secretary of Defense is literally Raytheon.
To me, that decision, when I first heard it, I was like, what? And then I was like, well, actually, that makes sense. Like if your intention is to come in and slash budgets, having some Fox News firebrand in place to basically just, hey, your job is going to be to fire people. Elon's going to give you a list of recs, and you're going to go fire a bunch of people. Like, I mean, yeah. And then you need to be able to go on TV and defend all this stuff. So I mean, that's not a bad.
And also like
if that's your intention,
cancel some expensive boondoggles while you're there. Like personnel is one thing, but like, is this project that we've been funding for the last 10 years for whatever is like, is this ever going to be? Why do we keep cutting checks to Lockheed or Boeing forever on this? I mean, what? No, right. Or is this stopping? We're stopping.
I transitioned off of Marco too fast. I forgot to. So Marco, Elise, and then Mike Huckabee as ambassador to Israel. I mean, there's a guy who definitely is behind definitely all for the genocide to continue.
Massive hawk on that one. I'll tell you though, the thing is though, and I think here's kind of the fun part. I don't think they're going to have any trouble confirming these people.
No.
And so I think there's a little bit of a strategy here where it's like, okay, look, because the Senate, yes, 53 or 54, whatever it turns out to be for Republican control, you still have a lot of old school country club Republican, uniparty Republicans there. I mean, think that they just elected Thune as their majority leader. So, so you're. I don't think
so. We do have some grown-ups in the room.
Well,
is the point of view of the
Yeah. Well, and I do think you're gonna like for the appointments that he doesn't need to get congressional approval. Like he doesn't need congressional approval for his chief of staff. He can just get whoever he wants. But for a lot of these roles, you are going to need approval. And so if you say, okay, look, here's some people for you guys, right? Everybody's happy. I can work with these guys. And then, but I'm going to want Matt Gaetz as my AG.
Well, so that's a bizarre pick. That was next on my list. I'm like, dude, this guy's under investigation for sex trafficking and statutory rape. So guess what happens to those investigations?
Yeah. So like I said,
why do you think that's good? That's crazy.
No, it's spicy. What I'm saying is like, okay,
we got
spicy appointment.
Definitely spicy.
Very spicy. We got a spicy appointment, and that spicy appointment is going to. It's like, okay, we're gonna, I'm gonna give you these guys, but I'm gonna need this one. And so I think maybe a little bit of horse trading at play, where so
also Matt Gaetz, and here's the other thing is like, so all this talk about he's been on the stump saying retribution, we're going after basically all the complaints about lawfare, we're just going to come and do it to you, and of course all his apologists, Tulsi, Vivek, everybody, oh no, they're not going to do that. The best retribution is success. Mm-hmm. But putting somebody like Matt Gaetz, I mean, he's all about that. So like to me, that's that's a signal that I'm definitely coming after my opponents. And that whole like deep state. Oh, these are the enemy within. We have to prosecute Adam Schiff and all these people for crimes, because they took opposing political stance. Matt Gaetz would be all over prosecuting those people for no reason.
So I think probably what would be likely, should he be confirmed, and I think that's the one out of these. I think Gabbard as DNI is also
I would say Rubio
not confirmed.
But
Rubio I think is a shoe and no problem with
Tulsi,
with
Elise, Huckabee, Ratcliffe, Kristi Noem is a maybe, but the dog slayer. She's a dog murderer, bro.
I think though that like, so here's if Gaetz is confirmed, I think in terms of like we say lawfare from the other side, I think you're going to see maybe two kinds of things. So one is the people who did the lawfare themselves, right? So the ones that greenlit this stuff, I think they're going to go. I think they're going to be tracked down. Like I think they're going to be hunted down legally, right? You're going to be like, okay.
Oh, I'm sure it'll all be legal, just like all the like all the Trump prosecutions were totally legal. It'll all be legal,
right?
Yeah,
so I'm saying
100% legal.
I'm saying that will happen, and maybe it'll be on stuff that's like not process crimes, but like, hey, we're gonna prosecute you for, a civil rights violation. You violated someone's civil rights by prosecuting him in this manner or something like that. So I mean, direct one-to-one kind of stuff. I think also there's probably going to be maybe one or two people, the sort of taste of their own medicine. So I would imagine maybe not Schiff, but someone like that, where it's like, hey, just so we all know that this can be done to you as well as to us, we're gonna target one of your guys, and they'll just be the sacrificial lamb to be run through the system for the next 4 years because we can.
I've been predicting that they will absolutely engage in 10 times worse lawfare than was directed at them. So when he named Matt, I was like, oh, I'm in line to win this bet.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It's one of those where it's like if the results are so bad that it just gets taken off of the means of warfare. So like, the general thought is that as weapons of war become more and more terrifying, there's no way to rewind the clock. Like once you invent the machine gun, even though there's no gallantry in machine gunning down an infantry.
Are you talking about The Last Samurai?
Yeah, something like that. There's no gallantry, but I mean, now that this thing exists, everybody's got to have it, and it's going to be used. And that's going to be the case for everything. And there's one exception to this, and that is large-scale use of chemical weapons by equal opposing forces. So this happened a lot during World War I, and even in
hasn't been done since. Yeah.
Even when World War II, where like say Italy is losing, they never use chemical weapons. So it's like, yeah, this one was bad enough. The experience was bad. We're just not going to do it at all. Doesn't matter if we're winning or losing. It's just not. We're not going to do it. And I don't even think it's principled. It's just like it's so ugly that no one wants to. And so maybe that's what happens here. Is like after we get a couple cycles of lawfare out of our system, maybe we start sending some of Biden's people to jail, like they jailed Navarro and Bannon or something like that. Some advisor somewhere.
Those guys defied congressional subpoenas.
Yeah, like we'll find some way to like, oh, they should have done this and they didn't, or there was some question about whether there was presidential privilege.
Are you really saying that them jailing Steve Bannon? This is fun. We found something we may disagree on. So back to the old days.
Yeah.
You really think in your head that jailing Steve Bannon, who refused to comply with multiple congressional subpoenas, like that was targeted political prosecution? That's your view?
So
I mean, what teeth does a congressional subpoena have?
Very little. It's and the
That's not true. They have the power to jail people,
yes, but
obviously, but they have had it. They've had it statutorily in the Constitution.
Eric Holder defied a congressional subpoena.
Okay, so just because the Republicans didn't put him in jail,
No, but that's what I'm saying is that, like, okay, you know, there's for the executive branch, it's like, hey, we're gonna go subpoena one of the Supreme Court justice clerks, and they're probably gonna just say no, you don't have the authority to do that, and then maybe
that's totally different. They don't. There is no constitutional oversight. Congress does not have oversight over the Supreme Court. They do have oversight over executive branch activities. So it's a statutory oversight function of theirs. And if I've never understood it, man. Going back to, I mean, when was it? When did I first? I think it was actually Trump's first time in office that they just were flagrantly like, "No, we're not even going to comply with that subpoena," and dared Congress to basically do something about it. And what they found out was Congress had no teeth. They couldn't enforce it or wouldn't enforce any of them because the alternative was we got to put you in jail, and nobody wanted to put anybody in jail. They finally find two people that are so egregious. They're like, okay, well, we're going to put you guys in jail, for sure. And it's like, oh, political prosecution. It's like, come on, man. I mean, it's such a small fraction of the amount of subpoenas that were actually completely disregarded.
I'm just saying the fact that it was used only against them and that this had been going on in various versions for decades.
It's not decades. It literally, I can't, I mean, we'll have to Google it. Episodes of congressional subpoenas that were blown off.
Ignoring congressional subpoenas.
Subpoena? Is that Latin? It's got to be Latin, right?
Yeah, let's see if we can find history on this. But like,
of course, you could make an argument. I think that would be intellectually consistent from defenders of, let's say, Bannon or whatever, would be that, okay, well, the amount of subpoenas that were issued, never before we had this level of investigation and targeted investigation just to screw with people. Although, I don't know, not really. I mean, the Republicans did it to Hillary Clinton leading up to the 2016 election, but she showed up for everything. That's the difference. Like they showed up for everything. They were responsive to it. Anyway. I'm curious what you find there.
So the there's an interesting list here on Wikipedia of partial list of contempt resolutions since 1975. So interestingly, just because a committee issues a subpoena doesn't even mean it's legally valid. There's a 3-step.
Right. You can obviously any person can fight a subpoena, but once it's been upheld as no, this is valid, then
right.
What's the resolution?
And then it's like, okay, if you don't do it, it's a misdemeanor. The criminal offense of contempt of Congress is a misdemeanor, and the fine is $100,000, and then there's like an imprisonment possibility on it too.
Yeah.
So we've got this whole list of stuff.
Do they have the amount, like which years were the most egregious, or how do they lay it out?
Okay, here's one. Brian Pagliano, IT Director, Hillary Clinton. September 13th, 2016. House Committee voted 1915 to recommend him for a contempt resolution. He submitted a Fifth Amendment plea. No contempt resolution was considered by the chair of the committee member. Subsequently addressed a letter to U.S. Attorney General, writing to an individual member of Congress, requesting
not the committee. This is not what I'm talking about.
Right, so on. And this committee is the House Committee on Un-American Activities. It's the Insurrection Committee, right? Yeah. So if you're the opinion, so here's what I think. I think the Insurrection Committee was a cover-up committee.
Its latest iteration that goes back to the 50s, I think. Un-American Activities.
Yeah, but the Insurrection Committee was this latest one was. I mean, they ignored a lot of evidence. The people were handpicked by the Pelosi, and not the opposing side wasn't able to send their own members up there. Like this is not a regular committee. There's a whole. I think we're going to find later on.
That's
now,
that's not true though. They chose not to participate. So Pelosi asked for volunteers and got to.
however you want to.
That's what happened.
Place the narrative, but
that's what happened.
My point is, my view is that this committee will kind of go down sort of in history as like so heavily politicized that maybe it was illegitimate from the beginning. And in which case, I think saying, hey, look, I think this committee is illegitimate. This is not a real committee. Which committee is this? This is not a real committee. Here are the committees. That's not a real one. I'm not going to show up. Like the only thing that you guys are going to do is ask me this. I'm going to give you my Fifth Amendment response because I don't think this is a real thing. And so here's my Fifth Amendment response. Here you go. It's like, no, we want you to come in person and give your Fifth Amendment response. And if you don't, we're going to put you in jail. Like it's, to me, like that just seems like a very petty.
No, rather than show up and take the Fifth Amendment, I'd rather sit in jail for 4 months because it's a political badge of honor for me. And by the way, it is. So
yeah, and I think that's what we found out is that
I'll get way more political capital out of going to jail.
Yeah. Well, I mean Bannon I think has come out kind of with what's his name vibes to him. Like I my only regret is that I was only allowed to spend 4 months in jail for my country, kind of thing.
Right.
Since it's being taken over by this hostile government, something.
All right. Well, so transitioning since we're short on time. So the last two on this topic would be the Department of Government Efficiency, the Elon Musk, and,
the Doge.
The Doge. Yeah.
So that one's not a cabinet position. That's an advisory position. So he doesn't need anyone. That's like declaring someone the such and such czar and giving them an office.
Oh no. So is it? Okay. So I thought that somebody was saying that, he doesn't even have the ability to create a new department without, Congress creates the departments or whatever.
Right.
So you can call him whatever he wants,
Yeah. In the past, you've called these people czar, which I don't know why. It's like a Russian emperor.
Russian. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. That's yet another proof that we're beholden to Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so you can have whoever he wants as an advisor. There's nothing. I mean, the way the executive branch is structured is you're supposed to have your cabinet be the confirmed members of these departments, the heads of these departments, but you can always have what they call the kitchen cabinet.
Right.
So if you say, hey, look, we're going to give you an office over here, and everyone knows that, if you ask for this, it's coming from me. And and again, if what he produces is like what you were saying, like lists of departments to get rid of, or lists of people to let go, or whatever, programs to stop, or, okay, cool. Like he can sit there and audit all he wants and give the recommendations, and can have a logo and an office and everything else.
Right. Yeah. Just have your graphics people come up with something.
but I mean, it's seriously like when people are saying, well, you can't have someone that's not confirmed run a made up department. It's like,
of course I can.
These are consultants.
Yeah. It was interesting to me, some of the different things that were coming out this week, the whole thing with that they're putting together, or they want to put together some military panel that's going to recommend, leaders in the military to acts basically that are not with the program.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've noticed several like, oh my God, I can't believe, they're trying to circumvent, the chain of command, et cetera. It's like the president is commander in chief of the chain of command. So how's that circumventing the chain of command? He's asking for advice on who he wants to keep. And I do not get that. It's like, for people that aren't down with whatever policy initiatives are there, it's like, oh, well, we got to stop him. Thank God these smart people are not going to actually implement what he wants. And it's like, I don't get it. It's like, people elect a president for a reason, and at the end of the day, does he have the constitutional authority to do these things? Yes, he does. So, like, what are we talking about?
There's a. I remember this happened.
I'm not saying they're even good decisions, but he certainly should be allowed to make them. And whatever disaster should befall him, he should get to his just desserts on it, you know?
The blame, we know where to put the blame.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Well,
what you wanted.
people did this in 2016. I remember he would like 2016. Trump would sign something or do an executive order, and people would be outraged. And you're like, "Why? What is the outrage? Like he doesn't have the authority. Like it's like how does he not have the authority?" And it would always come down to something like he's not even supposed to be there. The only reason he's there is the Russians hacked the election.
Right,
He's
right.
not the real president. So then anything he did was like he doesn't have the authority to do that. You should just like sit
Well,
tight for
I
your 4
think-
years.
I
And
think
people
it's
did the same thing. The Republicans did the same thing to Biden because they were like, wait a minute, how dare you say to change Title IX for the Department of Education? Like, you don't have the authority to do that. You're not even the real president. It's like, yes, he is. He does have the authority to do that. Vote him
yeah.
out.
Yeah, I think it's there's a lot of just institutional what's the right word? Is it entropy?
Or inertia.
Inertia, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah,
Inertia.
okay.
Yeah. Institutional inertia that just is like barnacles on the thing. And it's like, oh, we can't actually do, any of these things that that the public is asking for. And it's
We've
to
never
me,
done it that way.
we've never done. And I think the other thing, and you pointed this out to me a couple of years ago, and rightly so, that there's a difference between what is permissible by statute or not permissible by statute and what the norms are, right? So like the norm is that the Justice Department, for example, the Department of Justice is independent from the president. The president, I mean, it's a long-standing tradition that the president does not direct the attorney general or the head of the FBI or anything else. Like they do their thing. Yeah. He appoints good people, and it's a rule of law. And then, of course, he's under the law just like everybody else is.
And he can pardon people,
yep.
but
the
that's
DOJ
different from directing a prosecution
or putting the kibosh on an investigation or whatever the case may be. Yep. But the fact is, no, actually, that's not the way the statute reads. The way the statute reads is he's the head of the executive branch and he can do whatever he wants. And if he wants to make a phone call and say, hey, this is what I want to have happen, anybody has the right to say, no.
Here's my resignation.
And yeah, here's my resignation, or you can fire me or whatever the case, there can be a showdown. Obviously people have whatever recourse they have, but at the end of the day, he's the CEO. So it's like, or she, whoever it is. And I would be saying the same thing if Kamala was in charge. It's like, well, they don't have the norms and blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, I mean, I think we're all past this whole like deference to the norms. I mean, it's just, and I think at some point too, when it's interesting because I was laughing with a liberal friend of mine. I'm like, I bet you're really glad for the Chevron deference being gone now, right? And they're like, actually, yeah, So it's really interesting, because here the Supreme Court. For those of you guys that don't know, Chevron deference is basically the idea that if a Department of Energy, let's say, sets out here are the new parameters for whatever, right?
We in the past we said this word means this, but now we think this word means
but now
this other thing.
It means this other thing, or actually we're just rewriting the rules. Like they do that all the time. CMS manages Medicare and the Affordable Care Act. I interact with them a lot, and it's just like, oh, now here's how we're interpreting it now, and it's just like, oh, you just literally changed. That's going to be a seismic shift in how
No, we just changed the interpretation.
We just changed it. Yep, we just changed it, and the courts historically had to defer to that. So like if there was no law against it, they just had to defer. Well, that's what they're saying. Or if there was a law that seemed to be in conflict, it was like, no, the department, we give deference to their interpretation, and that's out the window now. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the time that they passed it, it's like, oh, this is going to be a seismic. This is crazy. These conservatives are trying to dismantle the system. Now they're all like, hey, that's a win for us, because they can sue on all these things that prior to this there wouldn't have been an avenue for them. Yeah. So I just think, dude, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. These things kind of work themselves out. Everybody's got to play by the same rules. And I think as long as people are playing by the same rules, people can decide whether or not that was an effective course of action or whatever, That's for the first time in a long time, I've been very interested in how these things pan out. Usually it's like, oh, they're naming their cabinet. It's basically just like, whatever, just going to be more of the same, marginally different here or there. These are some pretty seismic picks. I think a lot of them, not all of them, but there's quite a few in here that have the potential to be very disruptive, in a good way. So we'll see.
By the way, We had a comment here from Anthony saying, "Pardon Hunter." And
Yeah, he should.
I just want to say, I think that would be a great thing to do. There's the only reason that Hunter has been prosecuted to the degree that he has
Lawfare.
is because of his connection to the White House. And yeah, what he did was against the law. Let's plead him out. Let's just wrap it up and be done. Like, yeah, no further prosecutions on this stuff after this point.
That would be such a low cost olive branch, and also whether they accept it or not, it's still something they can tout all over the place. You know, I mean, that is a very, if he doesn't do that, that'd be just a brain dead stepping over a $20 bill, basically.
It seems real easy to do because, I mean, he's already pled out to several things. So all you have to do is just say, for any further prosecutions from this time point on these topics, you have a pardon. I don't know. I think it would be a smart thing to do.
We'll see what he does, man.
Yeah.
Well, we're straight up 5 o'clock, bro. I'm going to get you out of here on time today. Yeah.
We did it.
Yeah. I have more on my list, but we'll just amend the remaining points and
we'll wait till next week.
Time.
We might, you know, the fun thing is if we do like a live Thanksgiving show.
We should do that.
Since
in person
together.
An in-person live. Yeah, exactly. We'll set up a wide angle camera and.
Yeah, maybe for like the 28th or something, after we're like full of turkey, and we'll be like, I just love everything. You know, when you're super full, like the world just sort of glows and it's beautiful.
We can set up a table in my kitchen or whatever. Have dad chime in. You know, he'd enjoy being on here. You guys would love, for those of you guys watching, you would love to hear our dad's opinion on stuff. So he's an interesting cat.
Agreed. So
all right, brother.
Maybe on the 28th we'll do that.
That sounds good to me, man. Well, hey, have fun with your afternoon. Thanks for everybody for watching. We'll see you next week.
Enjoy.